Okay, Chairman Hughes, the public is in.
Wonderful.
John, if you'd like to call the meeting to order.
All righty, let's call the meeting to order. And Leah, can you take roll?
Chairman Hughes,
Present.
Vice Chair Farrow,
Present.
Board Member Kuzno,
Present.
Board Member DePews,
Present.
Board Member Kakashi,
Present.
Board Member Lee, Board Member Mullen,
Present.
Board Member King Pipenbrock,
Present.
Board Member Ralstrom,
Present.
Board Member Secord,
Present.
and Board Member Tompkins.
Present.
Chairman Hughes, we have a quorum if you would like to continue.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you everyone for attending. First order of business is to approve the January 5 meeting minutes. Do we have a second to approve that?
Kurt Ralstrom, I do.
Is there any discussion? All righty, if not, then let's call to approve the meeting minutes from January 6, 2021.
Board Member Kuzno,
Aye.
Board Member DePews,
Aye.
Board Member Kakashi. I saw your hand. Board Member Mullen,
Aye.
Board Member King Pipenbrock,
Aye.
Board Member Ralstrom,
Yes.
Board Member Secord,
Yes.
Board Member Tompkins,
Yes.
Vice Chair Farrow,
Yes.
and Chairman Hughes.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Wonderful. Hey, the first order of business on the agenda is the update on the DPW facility. We're going to have Director Seislin take us through that, but I want to make one quick comment before that. I heard wonderful things about the vaccine activity at the Tompkins Center today at Windmill Point Park. Hats off to City Manager Seislin and the Grosse Pointe Park department managers. I hear, Nick, you're on track to vaccinate, approximately 100 people?
Yeah, so we're looking to about 800 hopefully for today and another 800 tomorrow.
Outstanding. Congratulations.
Thank you. We do have, just to back you up 1 second, we do have public comment, Chairman Hughes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I have no written public comment, so I'll let Leah go ahead and get started for the spoken public comment.
Very good.
Thank you, Director Seislin. So really quick, I just need to get a timer pulled up. And the first person in the queue is going to be Mary. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself, please, and state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Leah. Good evening. Regarding the parking survey, it appears from the language in the agenda packet that no nearby residents were included in the survey, even though that commitment was made. I didn't receive one, and to my knowledge, neither did any of my neighbors who are closer to Lake Point and Kirchville intersection. As a TIFA resident, I'd like to see the survey and a summary of the answers, but perhaps this will all be shared during this meeting. I ask that resident voices are not overlooked and that a proper parking study be included in the master plan process. It's also important that a clear process and timeline be established for timely input on the upcoming 2021-2022 budget. The budget is not on the agenda, but perhaps it will come up during new business. Last year, this body adopted a budget in May, yet your next meeting is currently scheduled in June. So when and what is the deliberative budget process? Residents have never been incorporated into that process, by the way, and it's simply not acceptable. Thank you.
Ooh.
Okay, thank you. The next person in the queue is Brian. If you will please state your full name and city of residency for the record, please go ahead.
I'm Brian Bosberg, resident of Grosse Pointe Park. I'm also a resident of the TIFA district. And I wanted to comment on two items on the agenda tonight. One is the DPW facility update. I would just like to point out to the board that previously, as well as not only to you, but also to the city council, has been told that this is a $4 million project. We now see that this is a nearly $4.5 million project. Also does not include the cost of property acquisition. So this project is very close, if not over. It's kind of fuzzy as to what the actual cost of property acquisition has been for this project, but you are at or near or over $5 million now for this project. Has not even started construction. The second item I want to talk about was also the parking study. I would not, as a professional urban planner, I would not call what occurred a parking study. It would be more of a survey or questionnaire, and is not a parking study, nor do I think it is anywhere close to the type of information that should be gathered for the types of decisions that the resolution is asking the board to be made. This board made a commitment to include residential residents of the TIFA district in the study. We are also struggle with parking issues related to the commercial areas. We also were promised that you were going to get a study done with MKSK as part of the city's master planning process. So I'm not sure why this is on the agenda tonight, given the previous commitments this board has made. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Seisland, I have no further public comment at this time.
Okay, thanks, Leah. So next item on our agenda is the DPW facility update. And so TIFA members, in your packet tonight included conceptual design renderings from Stuckey Vitale Architects, which you approved for their consideration to design the building. You have a building looking at from Mack Avenue, looking at the front facade there. You also have as well looking at the side over on Maryland, and as well on the back side towards Weyburn. And so at this time right now, the city building department, myself, are working with Ron Selly, who is the construction manager and will be constructing the building. We're going through final numbers right now. And as well, we should probably see in your packet as well, a timeline that prospectively shows what a preliminary construction schedule is. It needs to be a little bit updated, but at this point, we're looking at probably towards the end of April, we'll start to see some construction fencing and some work being done at that time. As well, in your packet, I did include a overall project budget that included approved expenses from the TIFA, as well as the construction budget for the actual building Ron Selly will be building for us. In that project budget includes everything from demolition of the former Verdunk's Bakery, hazardous material abatement, engineering design services, site survey, fixed furniture and electrical, low voltage systems, security, and then the construction budget of the building. As part of the other steps that are going to need to be taken, the city council will have to approve vacating the alley that abuts a section of the DPW facility and a portion of Weyburn. As well, the city council will have to consider a lease that was approved by the TIFA board at a future city council meeting for their consideration, which that lease would be $1. And so at this point right now, that's my brief update. Other things I can make mention real quick. We did have a planning commission meeting that was back last year, where they did approve the overall site plan with a couple accommodations that we could improve the site of the building along Maryland, also the site along Mack Avenue with more lighting, And so those are also being consideration, of course, with planning and cost. And so, that is my report right now, and be happy to take any questions or comments.
Excellent, Director Seisman. I have a couple quick questions and clarifications. This is John Hughes. I just want to make sure I understand that the TIFA was authorized by the City Council to secure funds for the construction of the DPW building with a bond placement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's what we have in fact done so far. We've secured a $4 million bond and received the funds at an incredibly excellent interest rate of 1.49%. Now, the next step is we are legally bound. The TIFA board is legally bound to utilize these funds to build this DPW facility. Is that correct? That
is correct. And it was
okay.
1.94.
Right. And the budget to build the DPW came in at or below $4 million, which was the goal, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that also includes the demo and the abatement for the structures that were there prior to, correct?
That's outside of the 4 million. That was approved previously by the
that's
TIFA.
right.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. So at this point, we secured $4 million to build a $4 million building, correct?
Yes, that's correct. For the building proper.
Outstanding. I think we're on track and we're following the tasks that we were given and we laid out to do. Excellent work. We're looking forward to the construction to begin.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Director Seisman, I had a couple of quick questions. I know before you had mentioned that you were looking at cost saving options relative to plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and architectural. I was wondering if you had any update on that. And then also, I had asked before about the cost associated with furniture and security system equipment. I know you have furniture and security listed on this one spreadsheet. But there's nothing about landscaping or sustainability cost. That's my second question. And then my last question is, if there are over expenditures, who's responsible for that? I mean, does that come out of the TIFA budget down the line, or how does that work?
Okay, so I will start with your last question first.
Okay.
And I might have to ask you to repeat the others, but so if there's any cost overrun, certainly that's something that could be considered by the TIFA board, or elsewise, if that was something that the city council wanted to consider, they could do so. In regards to landscaping, that is included as part of the construction budget of the $4 million. And there was a second part of that question. I'm trying to remember it. If you could help me.
So you have furniture and security system. I was asking about additional cost for equipment, landscaping, sustainability, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so part of that, so landscaping is included. And in regards to sustainability initiatives, which would be, as part of the build of the building, that's included in the 4 million. And the other part would be included as well. And then if you could ask the other two.
Okay, so the first part was you indicated you were looking at cost saving options in terms of plumbing, electrical, mechanical, architectural. So did we have any success with saving money in those areas, or what happened with that?
So initially the building, when it was bid out, it was, it would be, so when you're doing your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, there was different products that would be used. And in turn, once we got those back, we discussed this with the construction manager, and they thought that we could probably look to do a design build in regards to those, so we could have some cost savings and not have the exact same, for example, air conditioning unit, or, this unit could be different. It doesn't have to be the same exact product. And so those are some initiatives that they were able to find. And so that's really helped us out there, and they're going to continue throughout this process while they're building. There might be some areas, especially because of a high cost of material right now, that maybe they could look at and say, hey, go back to the city and would you consider, maybe if we can make a savings here. That's something we're absolutely looking at. We're looking at every item we can to save and maximize the amount we can with this building.
All righty, thank you.
Chairman, this is Arthur Mullen. I was wondering if I could ask a couple of questions myself.
Go ahead, Arthur.
Sure, Director Seisland, in the security system, there's a $140,000, $500 cost. Seems high to me for a security system, but I don't know. So at $8 a square foot, what is the, if we could get some additional information on that, that'd be appreciated. And then two, on the construction budget, I think it would be valuable if we were able to see since we're the ones paying the $4 million, it would be nice to have that broken out to look at some of the construction lines so we can better just see where, the cost benefits or, cost cutting are taking place, but we're increasing in certain areas because we want to spend a little bit more on more efficient lighting. So it would be nice to be able to see inside of the 4 million. We approved 4 million, but we don't know what's going on inside of that amount. And just because we have 4 million doesn't mean we need to spend all 4 million. So that's
Arthur, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I would expect the city manager working with the contractor to use the funds as efficiently as possible to make the best trade-offs. While I think it's reasonable to expect feedback about a lot of the different line items, I think it's challenging to ask the city manager to detail every single line item on the budget so that we can pick through every item. I have to expect that he's going to do his job with the construction manager to get this task done. I think if you have a specific item, I think it's very valid about the security system. Yeah, that might sound a lot, but I'm not sure about recording and monitoring and wiring and cameras and sensors. If in fact that is high or reasonable or a value. But I think it is a reasonable question. If there's specific items like that, I think that's fair. But to have a deep dive on every line item, I'm sorry, it just feels a little bit like a fishing expedition to me.
That's not my intent here. My intent is.
Okay, I understand that.
Yeah, my intent is to more of, I don't need to see specific lines. I'm not in the construction industry, but if we're having $100,000 savings here, it may allow us to think about making some adjustments down the line. We don't know where.
Oh, no, as I mentioned, I think that's a reasonable question to ask about the security system. But you also asked about a lot of other detail, which
because
I'm not sure how productive that's going to be.
We can't see what's going on inside this $4 million amount. And it would be nice to know if they're making savings in one area where they're turning around and spending it. That's all. I don't need to know a dollar by dollar budget amount, but if we're looking at, we're looking at construction, we're looking at electrical, we're looking at HVAC, those are big numbers. And if we're saving, if we're having a big savings in one area, that then means that we're able to save more money. We can then decide where we want to spend that money. Do we get to do some improvements to the exterior facade? Can we make the building more sustainable because we have more money? I'm just trying to say, if we can see what's going on a little bit more inside of that amount.
Chairman Hughes, I'll make a brief comment. Certainly when I looked at that line item for the security systems, as Arthur mentioned, I thought it was extremely high. That's something too that I certainly want to see if we can reduce some costs there. I think Ron Selly at the time was wanting to look at what is, they from what I've been told, they looked at what the highest predicted cost would be. So I think that's an area right there we can already save. In regards to the other requests, I think that's an area where if we wanted to say in regards to landscaping, if we cut from here, we add to there, I could definitely accommodate in some fashion of that to the board.
Good.
Thank you.
This is Board Member Cousineau. I have a question. The $4 million budget line, how fixed is that amount? Is Ron Selly obligated to build the building for that price, or are they allowed cost overruns? Because in my business, I'm seeing massive cost changes in the last 6 months. And so I'm, my concern is not as much that, we're going to save money, is that I think the cost overruns due to COVID could be, bigger numbers, and that would be my concern. So is that 4 million a locked in number?
That is a locked in number. So per the contract that was signed with Ron Selly, they are not to exceed $4 million for the building proper. Anything above that, we would have to have a further discussion with that contractor regarding that, because that was signed by the city or by myself, that it is not to exceed that price.
Okay, that's fabulous, because that's important.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. Good discussion.
Nick, Joe Tompkins, I have a question or a point, I guess. What is our role in this? We've granted the money, or we agreed to support the bond, but are we actually involved in the building of this, or we were just the funding of it? In other words, what role are we really playing? The TIFA board.
So the TIFA
Joe,
board,
get your shovel, buddy. We got some holes to dig.
Hey, I've done it all.
Yeah, so to answer your question, certainly if you want to help John out, we can certainly accommodate you out there, Joe. It is the TIFA that is funding this building, and if anyone else wants to join me, I'll let you know. Otherwise, as part of this process, this was something that the former director went to the TIFA board to consider, as a start of this project with the architect, and then we went through the process of hiring a construction manager. Then TIFA went ahead and approved the bond note for such. And in regards to everything else from there on out, you've entrusted myself and our building department to review and work with the contractor, and the DPW department is working on this. Certainly to what board member Mullen said, your role is TIFA too. You can certainly take a look and make sure that, we're holding to under that 4 million proper for the building, and that any other costs and such, if there's something that we can save, and you want to express those, to me, I'd be certainly happy to hear it.
I have one question, if it's okay with the chairman.
Yes, please.
Director Seisman, I'm looking at your the drawings, and my only question is, because I have parking in my brain, where's the parking for employees? Is it on the side the north side of Mac?
Yeah, so you know what, Marcia, I apologize. I should have put in here. Sorry, that was a motorcycle. So I should have had a site layout. So with the brick wall that is along the north side, so along Alter, facing that way, that would be the employee parking. And on the Wayburn side of the lot would be part of the yard, which would be for material, salt, dirt, rocks, and that nature. So yeah, the employees will all be parking along that wall on the Alter side, and for anyone that wants to park on the Mack Avenue side.
And when the trucks or whatever is coming out, do they exit this building on Wayburn at all?
They do not exit Wayburn at all from there. So the only way
Maryland.
there is a light duty door that is out on Maryland that would be purposely just for F-150s and that. We didn't want big garbage trucks or anything to be exiting and entering from that side. A
Right.
majority of all of those, the 3 main doors will be off of Mack Avenue, and there will be an ingress and egress so that the DPW can drive straight through from the yard into the building and out to Mack if they please, or vice versa.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Excellent.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Any for time overrun, if this thing's not done by Christmas, is there any penalty involved for Rancelli?
No, not at this time. The only thing that, oh, did someone say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so no, we don't have any time overrun. We do have a performance bond for this project that it would
Okay.
be, you know, and so we have that secured.
But I just know how tough it is getting people out to do the work you need to do.
Yeah, materials definitely at a little bit higher cost right now.
That's what I'm saying. They get it done by October. That'd be a feat.
Yeah, we're really shooting for October to November.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's, if we're set there, let's proceed to the COVID-19 grant program updates. If you could take us through that, Nick and Leah.
Yeah, thank you. So Leah prepared for us just a short memo about the round 2 COVID program closeout. So this program is going to close on April 16th. During the second round of funding, we had 11 businesses located within the TIFA that were awarded that funding. And out of the $50,000 that was set aside, about $48,569 was awarded and expended. And what I'd like to propose to you tonight is we would like to include a third round or round 3 of COVID funding with eligible expenses for assisting those businesses. So what I'll do is I'll kind of go over a brief review of what round 3 funding guidelines would entail. A lot of this you've seen before, but we've added a couple new items for you. So what I'd like to propose is that this round 3 would have $75,000 available for award funding. Funding can be utilized on the following items. I won't read them all, but for the newest things that we added of note, barrier materials, including plant boxes, fencing, et cetera, to protect customers from the street or oncoming residents along the sidewalks, UV sanitizing lighting, air system purification upgrades, PPE such as masks, hand sanitizers, commercial grade sanitizing equipment, marketing expenses. That's something we definitely wanted to look for. And as well, we have before, but I just want to reiterate again, there's other expenses as determined by TIFA or by permitted use according to state law. And that's something certainly, you know, we will be happy to look into and accommodate regarding any of those businesses that apply. And so once we, businesses who receive funding in round 1 and 2 can apply again for round 3 funding. However, award preference will be given to businesses who have not previously applied yet. So local businesses that are interested in receiving that funding must submit a letter of interest to the TIFA email. Letter of interest needs to include to describe what the business is requesting. Applications will need to be started on, they'll actually be out on April 19th. And all round 3 funding projects will need to be completed and closed out by June 18th, 2021. Applicants who are given funding will need to sign a funding agreement, agree to the terms and conditions outlined by the Tax Increment Finance Authority. And all funding applicants will be given a maximum amount of $6,000 for the project outlined in their application, with half of those total funds provided by the city at the beginning of the project. And the rest of the money would be given once the project is completed and supporting documentation to the city. And so that is my proposal. And after this discussion, I'll be presenting to you a request for a budget amendment to approve that funding to move into the COVID-19 business line item within the TIFA. Happy to have any of your comments and suggestions. This is certainly an open discussion or any ideas you may have. And I just want to thank you.
Thanks, Nick. I think we've had some good success and responses to phase 1 and phase 2, and phase 3 appears to be a natural evolution of that, especially with the priority given to those who haven't applied before. I think it's a positive thing to help support our businesses, especially as they've been through some pretty difficult times. Any other comments?
I have
Chairman,
one question, if it's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
This is Marcia. TIFA is responsible for giving this money to our businesses in the area, and they're going to apply and ask for what they're going to tell us what they're going to use this money for. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And
And it does have limitations.
okay. Do we have any is TIFA responsible for oversight to make sure that, you know, they're using it for whatever they said, or is that important, or what?
Yeah, so as part of the project, what we do, Board Member Farrow, is that, you know, we presume when you provide your letter of interest in your budget, it has a detailed line item that says, I'm purchasing chairs, outdoor heaters, fire pit tables. And so we'll front you that $3,000 in this proposal, but then we're gonna ask for receipts and confirmation that you've purchased said items. And that way you'll be able to get the other $3,000 that you say your total budget costs. If there's an area where, you know, somebody says, you know, we're not going to purchase those anymore, or, you know, that they actually didn't purchase that, then some of that money may not be granted to the business. But at this time, we have not had any real issues with that with the businesses. They've been pretty good about working with us regarding such.
Yeah, I thought so, and I had no doubt that they would. I was just wondering if it was TIFA's responsibility to check that out, or city council's responsibility, or whose responsibility it was to check out, to just make sure that, you know, what they said they were doing, they actually did.
Well, you're looking at one of them right now, and my assistant Leah is certainly helping out too. And obviously, you as the board are, you know, the oversight of this grant program. So,
Okay, thanks.
and the city attorney.
Just have a quick question. I like how you're saying that people that haven't gotten the grant before will be prioritized. But if there's no separate deadline, like how will they be prioritized?
So I think
Because right now it's going as you apply, you're getting approved.
Mm-hmm. So I think what we were looking at prospectively is when we had our last couple, or I'll say with round 2, when round 2 first started, with all the applications that came in, from just the amount of what they're requesting, we were almost already to the $50,000. And so that piqued my interest, that just in case, if, you know, we get a flurry of, let's say, $60,000 or 65 before we go through and vet all of that funding, and or if it's actually above that 75,000, we would try and prioritize those businesses that haven't applied first. But certainly your suggestion, I think, is a good idea and something that I will definitely talk with Leah, and, you know, we'll look to consider.
Yeah, I think there should, because I like the idea of having a closing date to get the projects done by June 18th. But if we're gonna cap it out at $75,000, I just think there should be a deadline where you receive all the applications and look at them all together, instead of it being like a first come, first serve.
Okay. No, thank you for your comment.
Chairman Hughes, this is Arthur Mullen. May I ask a couple of questions?
Oh, absolutely, sir.
I do want to commend Director Seislin and Assistant Smith on their work on these 2 rounds of funding. I think that's been amazing that we've been able to get that much money out that quickly to the local businesses, and they deserve a lot of appreciation and thanks for their hard work on this. One thing regarding round 3, I did speak with a couple business owners about considerations, and a couple of comments that came up that that I would like to see if we can fit in is not only do these businesses need to consider spending money to help people be outside, they may also be suffering against cash crunch issues. And is there a way for us, and this may be a question for the city attorney to look at the TIFA law, are we able to also provide funding that would be able to pay for back rent, back utility expenses, that they can easily demonstrate those costs to us? Same amount of money, but I'm thinking that this is some operational funding. It will help them to get moving more quickly. The current program right now is really saying we're going to give you 50-50 and it will help you earn money. But if they're already behind the 8 ball, some of these businesses might not be able to really hit the ground, take advantage of us getting hopefully out from under this pandemic sometime during the summer. And when they're cash crunched, they're not able to hire as many people, have as much of an impact on getting their businesses back up and running. So I'm hopeful that maybe there is some adjustment that we could do to that program to be able to provide some cash support if they could demonstrate that. And I feel that way, and I'm not sure if it's possible, but this came from one of the business owners, and then also wanting to make sure that this was available for the other retailers besides just the restaurant businesses, that there was a way that they could demonstrate a loss in their revenue from the last year, that they would be able to comply as well. So like the record shop, some of the hair salons have been suffering as well. So that is just some food for thought.
A quick
Yeah,
comment.
if I could address that real quick, Chairman and Director Seisland, that is something we did look at. We looked at that from a legal perspective at the beginning of the pandemic. The statute does not provide for TIFA funds or DDA funds to be used for costs such as utilities, rent, some of those soft costs you're referring to. I will say that I've seen some cities that have had grant or loan programs directed at that. So I think our initial research was that TIFA funds could not be directed that way. But seeing that some cities, it doesn't mean they're right or that they're interpreting the statute correctly. But I did talk with Nick about this, and we're going to poke around a little bit and talk to some of those city attorneys and see what their justification or interpretation is. I think it's a stretch under the statute, but if it's something we determine can be done safely and without, violating the law, I think that's why in Nick's comments, he was mentioning, funds for any lawful purpose. So we're trying to see if we can find a way to fit that under the lawful purpose, but the statute itself on its face and the research we did previously seem to indicate that it is not. But we will look into it and are looking into it.
Right. The one, I looked at this before our meeting, and it was implement any plan of development in a development area necessary to achieve the purposes of this part in accordance with the powers of the authority as granted in this part, which is section 307 F. The powers the board may. Then our plan does state our vision or plan vision is the proper use of tax increment and financing dollars in a manner that will creatively, positively, and proactively contribute to the economic development or redevelopment. So
right. I looked at that. If you read that, it says the last phrase is what concerns me. In accordance with the powers of the authority as granted by this part. So you have to find that this part, this section 307, grants the ability to use the TIFA funds for that, and then you can use them in furtherance of your development plan. So I did look at that. There's another provision in here that I think you could maybe stretch and pull, and so that's why I want to look a little bit further. I think it's unclear on its face. I don't think TIFA was designed for that purpose. At the same time, I don't think anybody anticipated a pandemic and all the trouble we've had. So if we can find a way to make that work, we will do it. I just want to make sure it's legally sufficient, or at least the board is aware of sort of the different interpretations so they can make a decision on how to proceed.
Okay, well, great. Thank you, Attorney. I appreciate you looking into that. And thank you, Director Seisland. That sounds great.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for your comment. Very good input.
I got a quick comment.
Sure.
Whoever thought of just a couple things as I was reading the reopening assistance program, the barrier materials, plant boxes, fencing, etc. Whoever put that in there, smart. We needed something like that. That's a great idea. I was thinking, and maybe if you had something like uniform that you could put as a barrier that kind of would maybe on the same block or something that would look a little bit more presentable than everybody coming up with their own plant box or whatever. But it was just a thought, but I thought that was a great idea. Whoever thought of that, super. And I think the assistance program has been going great. I think people are really talking about it, and I think it's been great. That's it.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Okay, so so we'll move to the what I'd like to do is approval of a budget reallocation so that we could administer this program. So within the memo I provided you, we've announced a third round of funding for the local businesses. Currently, the reopening assistance round 3 has only about $1,431 available for funding. I would propose to the board an increase of $73,569, which would total out $75,000 for the round 3 of the grant. So certainly I would entertain.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Boy, that was easy.
Yep. Well, this is good. We need to help our businesses.
Smart.
Leah, can you call the roll?
Yes, I can. Board Member Cousineau,
Aye.
Board Member Depew,
Aye.
Board Member Kakashi, Board Member Mullen.
Aye.
Aye.
Kokosi.
Okay, I heard you. Thank you.
Aye.
Board Member King Pipenbrock,
Aye.
Board Member Ralstrom,
Yes.
Board Member Secord,
Aye.
Board Member Tompkins,
Yes.
Vice Chair Farrow,
Aye.
and Chairman Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Wonderful. Alrighty, we are ready to go on to a new old business. The first item, I'd like to mention one item before the parking study under new old business. And it was brought up prior, the budget. We are in the process, we did provide some information to the board members. And thank you, board members, for providing feedback and your priorities back to Director Seisland and Assistant Smith. Appreciate that. We are working together with the city treasurer and the director to put together some preliminary budgets relative to your inputs. And we are looking to call a special meeting in May, the 17th or 18th of May. So if you just make a note in your calendars, as we get a little next week or two, we'll try to give you advanced notice of that meeting so that you can get that on your calendars and we can have a meaningful discussion on the budget and be ready to propose a preliminary budget for the end of June. Any thoughts on that, Director Seisland?
No, thank you, Chairman Hughes. Yeah, certainly I will go ahead and send an email out to the TIFA board with those dates. And if you could provide me your confirmation whether or not will work, then we'll have a special meeting scheduled at that time.
Excellent. All righty. If we could, go ahead.
I had a question about the budget, if I may.
Yes.
This is Pierre. I was just wondering about residential input, or how is that affected? Is that something that we can do, something that has been done? And if we're looking at having a budget proposal prepared by May, when and how could we do that?
So my simple suggestions, Board Member Pipe and Brock, would be, if any residents certainly have input on areas that we should be looking at the budget, they can send emails to the TIFA@grossepointpark.org. They can also send it to my city manager email address. Certainly, if you talk with residents and or residents are reaching out to you, I'd be happy to certainly, take that information as we're looking through that budget process. And then obviously, public comment is a great way. We heard some earlier, we'll hear some at the end of the night. And, so that's really the outreach I would strongly consider. And then obviously we'll have a healthy discussion at that budget meeting. And there may be some suggestions that may come from the meeting that maybe we haven't considered in our budget that we need to amend.
All right, thank you.
Very good. Next item under new old business is parking in the business district. And Nick, before I let you kind of talk about some of the information that was put together, there was a question or a couple of comments relative to residential parking studies. And I just want to clarify. Initially, it was our intention to look at both the business districts and the residential districts. But in consideration of the residential parking, that's a much more significant initiative and covers a lot greater portion of not only the TIFA area, but also other parts of the city of Grosse Pointe Park on the other side of Jefferson, Nottingham, and Beaconsfield, et cetera. So while the master plan is underway, we felt that it was probably more efficient for the master plan team to look into the residential parking initiatives and opportunities. And that's a much bigger initiative than the TIFA. So that's one reason why we did not survey the residents that were within 4 or 5 houses of the business districts, because we felt there was a much larger parking issue in the residential areas. So Nick, did you want to now give an overview of some of the initiatives that we've done and a couple of thoughts and recommendations that came from this?
Yes. Sorry to interrupt real quick, Chairman Hughes. I did see Board Member Ralstrom. He did have his hand up before. I don't know if you wanted.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I'm not on the call. I didn't see it. I apologize. Go ahead.
Wait to the end, but what I wanted to say is there's been a lot of discussion tonight, and I truly appreciate Board Member Mullen's comments about the budget and everything else like that. I understand where he's coming from, and I have no qualms with that whatsoever. But I just want to let you know, I worked with John Vitale on a separate project several years ago, and it came in under budget. We received the Construction Association Award of Michigan for the project, and he was on top of everything, and he was extremely helpful with budgeting. Whether he'll do this for us, I don't know, but there absolutely there are give and takes and things like that. So I just wanted to reassure the board that I had some history before I even came on here with him, and we had a really great positive outcome from that. So I have great faith in the budget. I understand there's going to be tweaks with what happens with that, but I think that's just an ongoing process that you're going to have when you have a project of this magnitude. So kudos to Board Member Mullen bringing that up. But I think some of this is a little bit of a fluid situation, and I think we just have to allow, City Manager Nick Seisland to negotiate this. Thank you. I don't know if this was the right time or not.
Well, thank you, Board Member Ralstrom.
Okay, so as Chairman Hughes discussed, TIFA Ad Hoc Parking Committee was created of Chairman Hughes, Pierre King Pipenbrock, and Mr. Joe Tompkins. They worked with city administration to compile a 22-question parking study survey that went out on February 17th. We had 51 businesses located within the TIFA district. Of the 51 businesses, about 18 responses were received from the restaurants, salons, retail stores, and other specialized businesses. The study concluded it asked for businesses to consider their pre-COVID normal business and traffic patterns when filling out the survey. All 18 businesses indicated additional public parking is needed and necessary to maintain the current customers and attract new ones. All responses also indicated the need to upgrade the meters. This was definitely a big item, and I certainly agree. Our meters are quite old, they're obsolete. A lot of them are broken, and a lot of businesses have reached out to my offices about that. So that's certainly something I'd like to consider in the budget of replacement of those or a program. Signage to parking, wayfinding. Oftentimes, somebody that's from outside of town doesn't know where our public parking is. And so I think that's something that we need to look to as well, address over in the business districts. Increase the maximum amount of time and adjustments. We do have probably the lowest rate per hour in regards to our parking, but also we need to look into areas of how can we improve, whether we have 15-minute parking right in front of different businesses, so we can get those customers in and out real quick. And as well, on a different level at the city, it was brought to my attention that there is the gravel lot that is right behind Mr. Kuzno's business at Point Hardware. That was a home at one point, and so that's been shared by businesses and residents over time. And most recently, it certainly needs some help. And so what I'd like to look into, and I've already done so with our engineers, is looking into prospectively paving that lot. Making it more attractive. Instead of right now, there's just a dumpster there and people are lined up in certain ways. I give them credit for how they do it, but it would be nice if we could certainly look to upgrade that lot and make it a respectable one. As well, what I'd like for us to consider, and it came up, is painting lines. That's something right in front of Charlevoix, in front of Kercheval. There's certainly areas where I think if we had painted lines, that would be able to increase some of the parking there. And so those are a couple of things that I'm looking into, and that came out of the survey. I certainly would be happy to hear any of your suggestions as well. That's something I'd like to include in the budget for the upcoming year in regards to investigating cost of parking and meter improvements. Some of those dollars for paving can be used from the road millage that was approved by the voters of Grosse Pointe Park. And that also includes alleyways and streets, which you will typically see a contractor by the name of Cadillac Asphalt that will do so. So that's kind of the work we're doing right now. Happy to have your suggestions or comments regarding such.
Are there any other comments relative to Nick's overview?
I just have one question, Director Seisman. The parking meters, if we're talking about upgrading or whatever you do to those, how effective, how cost effective are those? Do we make money off of meters in the city of Grosse Pointe Park? I don't know. I never put any money in them, so that's why I was just wondering, is it something that, because after 6 o'clock, it's almost like there's, people know there's no policeman going to come around and give you a ticket or whatever. Are we making money off of those? I know we're supposed to, but.
There's certainly, we do have some revenue that comes in from parking. We took quite a hit this fiscal year because of COVID initially, when a lot of the businesses were shuttered. And as well, we actually waived parking tickets, for a majority of the year, and weren't really pursuing that, just to help save in that realm. We do have a lot of broken meters that probably have been fixed 5, 6, 7 times that, our DPW is very talented, but it's gone beyond its lifespan of being able to fixing anymore. And one of the things that certainly young people and others, they don't carry around change as much anymore. And so they're really looking for other ways. One of the things we tried to do and help out with is we have the system's called Park Mobile. It's a green sticker that's on your that's on the meter, and you can download an app on your phone, Android or Apple, and you can input your credit card. But some of the newer ones, they include where you could actually insert a credit card, or you have a pay station down in an area that you hit the number that you're at or the zone. And so those are the things that I think can't be solved right overnight because there is an extreme cost to it. There'd have to be a phasing in, but I certainly think it's something that would benefit the city and the businesses in the long run.
Okay.
So one follow-up question to that, Director Seisman. So perhaps would a near-term solution be to try to, while the cost of our parking is very reasonable, the convenience factor with feeding the quarters is not that convenient. So would a near-term solution perhaps be to extend the time on some of the meters so that if you're having dinner or in the salon, you don't have to run out, or an employee doesn't have to run out to put more quarters in the meter, first off, and then perhaps a more of a midterm type of solution would be to pursue a more modern parking system.
Yeah, certainly those are things that, we can consider and look into.
Okay.
I'd be happy to look at, immediately. I think a couple of the items we can button up, like looking into that gravel lot, I think is something that'll certainly be helpful. And absolutely, we can look into.
Great. Any other thoughts or comments?
I had one question.
Go ahead.
Well, the one question was, I wasn't sure, Director Seisman, oops, he went away. Sorry about that. When you just mentioned about the green sticker on the meters, is that something you're looking at or something that's already out there? Then my other question is, are you considering any handicap accessible parking anywhere in the business districts?
So in regards to the parking stickers, those were instituted maybe about close to 2 years ago. If you look at parking meters, there's a little green sticker that'll have a 4-digit number that you download Park Mobile and have your system, and you can go ahead and charge up to so many, X amount of hours depending on the area for parking. And our meter maid actually has a computer system that's able to check. So even though the meter may say expired, they still need to look on their tablet, and it's able to show that this person has paid for parking. In regards to handicap parking, that's one of those I think we do need to address, especially, and I'm glad you brought that up because I believe that needs to have a further review.
So yeah, I wasn't aware at all of the green stickers on the meters. I never noticed them. And I'm not going to tell on myself like board member Farrow, but no, I actually do put money in the meters. I never noticed those stickers. Thank you.
Wonderful. I have a couple of comments on parking and the parking survey or study, whatever it wants to be called. I know this board, this TIFA board, has talked about parking multiple times since I've joined it. And it's been almost unanimous that there's been a need for more parking in the business district. I know it was recently the initiative to add parking here or there was tabled to complete some type of a study. We did do a survey. Is it a formal study? I would say no, it's not. But we did survey the 51 businesses and received responses from 35% of the businesses. And I guess that's an excellent response rate based on all the market research I've done in my career. If I ever got 35%, I'd have fainted. I guess that compares to only 10% of a response rate to the master plan survey that's been out for a little while. But neither here nor there. A couple of items that we learned from the parking was we asked what percentage of your customers drive to your business? And the response came back at 88%. So 12% walk. There was 1 or 2% that may have Ubered or car shared, but 88% drove, which means folks are coming to the district and they're driving there. That's great. We also asked on average during a normal visit, how much time do your customers stay at your business? On average, it was about 68 minutes. Now, the high was a fair amount higher, like in a salon or on nice dining, and the low was lower. For example, a 4 or 5 minute visit to a retail or a hardware store. Another question we asked, not to mention how many employees do you have and how many work at your business normally, but we asked, where do your employees park? So about 34% said my employees park on our business property. 38% of the business employees, they stated that they parked in public parking spaces in the business district. And they said 27% on residential streets. So folks park, their employees park basically wherever they can get a park, whether it's on the business, in the business district, or on the residential streets. We also asked, when do your customers park in residential areas near your business? And that was a yes or no question. And 50% said yes, they do. The numbers don't quite add up to 100% because one business actually rents a lot for their customers, which they're probably not too happy about, but that's what they have to do to survive. Additionally, or lastly, 100% of the respondents either requested more parking spaces or stated more parking was needed in the area. I know we've talked about the difficulty of operating in this environment and the strain that's been put on businesses, and the third phase of the assistance program, and possibly expanding that assistance program to businesses. I think those are all important things, but something that's right here at our fingertips is helping more people come to the area to frequent these businesses and spend money at them. I remember, years ago, whether it's 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, being a resident, that these business districts were a skeleton of what they are today. The districts are significantly stronger, cooler, funner, and as a result, the values in the business district have gone up, as have the values of the home near the business district. It's kind of cool to live over between Jefferson and Mac because of the business districts. So, in my view, in my opinion, the survey confirms that more parking is needed. And it is, as we spoke before, it is the role of TIFA to proactively contribute to the economic development or redevelopment of the TIFA district. So, in an effort to improve the business district parking, have fewer customers and employees parking in residential areas, I'd like to make the following motion. The motion is to transition the TIFA-owned structure at 1166 Maryland into public parking. And the motion would include the direction to the TIFA director to obtain competitive bids for the demolition and abatement of the said structure not to exceed $50. And also to proceed, the motion would also direct the TIFA director to design, obtain bids for paving, and complete the project in a timely manner to help our businesses survive. So I propose this motion, and I would like to know if I have a second.
I would like to second that motion. Very definitely.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, this is Adi Kokoshi with Park Grill, a restaurant over here, and I couldn't agree more with what you just said. I've been here for over a decade and seen the transformation of the city become a destination from people, not just from our neighbor cities, whether it's the other points or St. Louis Shores or city of Detroit. We're talking about Sterling Heights, Berkeley, Royal Oak, you can name it. They come in every day every day. We have become a destination. And it's beautiful. This city has thrived so much in the past decade or so, that even though, yes, when you think about paving land and turning into parking lot, it is something that a lot of people, look at it the other way. It is necessary because it's not whether we like it or not. We have become that destination. We're not talking about the hill. We're not talking about, Grosse Pointe Woods it is here. It's Grosse Pointe Park District, Entertainment District that we have become. And you know what? That is from hardworking small business owners that have brought it to that point. And you know what? The demand is there. So yes, that parking is definitely necessary. The gentleman before me, everything, whether it's employees, whether it's guests, whether customers, everything counts. I hear it all the time. People cannot parallel park. If they cannot find a really easy parking spot to park to, they're not going to stop here, or they're not going to even come here. It's necessary. It's necessary. It's a touchy subject when it comes to parking, but being here for so long and seeing how everything has changed to what have we become as a city, with all the hard work from every small business owner, I think it's necessary. That's my point right now. And it is a good point that you made earlier. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
This is Board Member Cousineau. I'd like to make a comment as well. I've been in this business district for 30 years. In parking, parking needs to be a convenience. When people come to a district, as Adi said, they're coming to this area because it's thriving, because of the businesses that are here. But if we don't have a convenience of parking, they don't return. They leave with an uncomfortable feeling in their mind because the parking was awkward, it was difficult. So I think it's important that the parking be convenient, but I also think that the parking needs to be organized. We have currently multiple lots of parking in areas here and there and everywhere. And I think, as John indicated, that the removal of that particular home on Maryland would make a very nice continuous strip of an open parking lot going from Maryland up into Lake Point. So not only increasing parking, but giving it a very smooth, continuous flow, which makes it easy for people to find a parking spot. And as Adi said, it's amazing how few people can parallel park or want to parallel park. So like I said, we need that extra space there, and to make it a professional appearance to continue to keep people coming into our area. Because as these businesses thrive, so do the property values of all of Grosse Pointe.
I think member Rolstrom wants to say something, so.
Thank you. Randy and Audie, I agree with you 1,000%. I think it's terrible that we have employees that have to park on residential streets, that take the parking that we have available from the tenants that rent there. And I think we need to make accommodations for those people to park. I had a comment, and Board Member Farrow had talked about the parking meters and not putting money in it. And the question is are parking meters designed to create revenue, or are they designed to turn over spots so businesses like Randy, people can come in and do what they need to do, versus people not putting money in the meter and just staying there? I find that disingenuous, that if we're going to have the meters, then pay. You just can't park there all day if you're a business. So that's my question to, Nick Seisland is what's the purpose?
You muted yourself.
I'm so sorry. My my question is twofold. One, I understand. I think it's disingenuous that we have employees parking on residential streets. That I feel strongly that shouldn't happen. But with parking meters, Board Member Farrell, you had mentioned that you didn't pay money into that, and that brought the conversation is what's the purpose of the parking meters? Is it to generate revenue, or is it to limit the time spots in these businesses so that they turn over so that more people can come in, as Randy had suggested? I see parking meters as being able to turn over the spaces so when people come in there, they're able to come in to get the services that they needed, whatever they may be. I don't see it as a primary moneymaker, but to turn over the things. And to suggest that we don't put money in the parking meters, I think that's a no-go for me. And
I agree. I agree with you, but the only reason why I don't is because I never have change. I never have quarters on me. So.
And I don't mean it disrespectful in
I
any
know,
way, shape, or form.
I know, but if we're gonna do the meters and we make it accessible to credit cards, then that's a good thing.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think we all agree it's probably time to update our meters.
This is Joe Tompkins. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. I suspect most of us are not aware of this. I wasn't aware of it actually myself, but the trolley no longer runs because it's not ADA compliant. And I can't tell you when it stopped running, but my understanding is, and on a busy weekend, we would have 400 to 800 people on a Friday and Saturday night. And Dan, if someone would correct me on those numbers, I'd appreciate it. I guess my point is the trolley is not going to be back in service anytime soon. And I think that right there, we have a number of people who take the trolley for convenience. There are a lot of families, of course, that use it. It's sort of a fun kind of a thing for them to do. But I think that what we're going to see is a bit of the roaring 20s coming up here. As a business owner, I'm excited that with people becoming vaccinated and the economy opening back up, I think we're going to see an increase in patronage, especially in our restaurant districts where we've all, because of the good offices of the city of Grosse Pointe Park, have all expanded our outdoor seating. I actually have more seating at Cellar 313 outside now than I have inside. So I think that here again, I agree with the idea of additional parking, especially considering that we're losing a lot of parking spaces on the primary nights with the lack of the trolley. And by the way, the trolley might be something that we want to investigate as a TIFA project, because I think we're going to have to invest in a pretty expensive vehicle to have it ADA compliant. Thank you.
I can make a quick comment, Board Member Tompkins. So yeah, as soon as just before COVID hit, as the end of the season and the trolley was ramping down, COVID-19 hit, and it was something that we had shuttered, obviously due to the pandemic. As well, you are correct; it is not ADA compliant, and so that is something that would need to be updated. So just wanted to correct you on, or just let you know. And you were right; it's about 400 riders, 400, 500 a weekend.
I think it was close to 400 on a Friday and close to 500 on a Saturday. So it's a good fair amount of folks.
Quick comment, if I may.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
A couple things. One, they never went to Mack Avenue, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Other thing, let's talk about parking. I have the lot right in between there, Nottingham and Beaconsfield. And, for 20 years, I've done nothing but patrol that lot and try to make it available for customers. And I'm good friends with Gabe at Platts. So I got kind of, I coached Gabe, so I'm good friends with him, but he too, but those guys are young. I kind of want him to get on board tonight, but it didn't happen. But those guys they want more parking also. And it is a problem, the karate studio, then, the office building, and there is no parking whatsoever. So, it leads me to be the bad guy with everybody, but I'm okay with it. Everybody gets their share. But parking is definitely top notch. If that was, I'm sure that's at the top of everybody's. And I just want to say it is for us too on Mac.
Yeah, understand.
Chairman, this is Arthur Mullen.
Yes, sir.
A couple things I wanted to bring up. One is we at the last meeting, we discussed getting a professional parking study. We don't know how many parking spaces we need, and we don't want our commercial districts to be surrounded by seas of parking like in the village and cut off from the residential neighborhoods. So I strongly feel that we need to know how much parking we actually need. We won't know that until we do a parking study when things are fully operational. And we're shooting in the dark with this. There are costs of construction. These are numbers from several years ago, probably have gone up. Each parking space, if you land prep and paving is going to be about $3,500 per space. And then you have the environmental impacts of having additional stormwater in the neighborhood. We know what happened in the area of Kirchville and Weyburn when we paved that area and we don't have the stormwater able to handle that. We don't know the turnover. We don't know where people are parking. So we don't know where we need the parking. You feel that you need the parking. Every business community that I've ever worked for or worked with has this same concern. Parking is the boogeyman that no one can get their arms around. And so we may go off half-cocked and spend a lot of money on parking that's going to cost us a lot to operate when we don't need it all, or we may not need it all in one place. So that is some serious concerns that we have. A parking study will tell us where, when, and this is a science, and there's turnover. And as Board Member Ralston mentioned, we need to be able to have the right amount of turnover, which you get by setting the parking rates at the right rate so that there is available street parking and that your rates in your parking lots are lower so that people park there. Also, that's where your employees park. We won't know what that kind of turnover should be without a parking study. How can we do a parking study during COVID when we can't understand what we actually need in the area? So those are a couple of concerns. The motion that we have in front of us, a recommendation is for the DDA director to investigate costs of parking and meter improvements to be included in the budget. I would like to see what the city attorney and Director Seislin would feel would be appropriate if we can consider demolition. Another concern that I also have is we have parking lots now that I don't feel fulfill the zoning ordinance requirements for buffering. And so we're going to now build a parking lot. And so the people across the street have to look at pavement. Most areas that have residential that allow a parking area within a residential district require that there needs to be setbacks from the adjoining property owners. There also should be a setback from the sidewalk. That front yard setback should be protected. We have several parking lots that are paved right up to the sidewalk. So you have cars overhanging the sidewalks. So that should be all part of addressed in the master plan and the zoning ordinance. So I think you can hear where my head is on this. I think we need to get more information so we actually know where we should be spending our limited resources. And also recognize that parking has.
Arthur, this is Adi
negative
Kokoshi with
impacts
Park Gorilla one
on
more time.
that have negative impacts on the commercial district itself. If you
Well,
knock everything down, we aren't going to have the beautiful district that we have.
Right. Board Member Mullen, I really appreciate your comments. I think you raised some very important points relative to buffering and setbacks. Any parking facility or lot would have to conform to that, number one. Number two, I don't believe anyone here is looking to do a sea of parking lots the size of football fields or the size of a parking lot behind CVS and in the city. We're looking at one lot that's owned by the TIFA that is behind, adjacent to the commercial district. Zoning 22-27 allows for parking adjacent to the commercial district. So there's not a zoning issue. As far as design, that would have to be designed and approved by the building department so that it's appropriate setbacks, et cetera. And we're looking at perhaps 22 or 24 to 26 spaces in an area that has some high density of restaurants and bars and retail. So I appreciate the idea of a parking study. I really do. But, you know, in the scheme of things, our community is fairly well built out and developed. There really isn't a lot of places to put parking. We may have to put it where it exists or where it can exist, because no one wants to knock down a neighborhood or a block or a commercial building. But this particular vacant structure is TIFA owned and is already adjacent to existing parking. It's not like we're putting a parking lot in the middle of a block. I think this is an entirely a reasonable proposition, and we can study this until we're purple in the face. And I don't think that a number of individuals are going to come to a different conclusion, other than we need more parking, but not here.
I wasn't asking that. I was asking if there was how big of a lot is that parcel?
It'll accommodate between 22 to 26 spaces. I don't have the dimensions.
And then Arthur, this is Adi again. Listen, you're saying you cannot measure something like this within a COVID year. No, this has, we've been here for, the last decade. Randy and his business has been there for a very long time, and then realizing what's going on. So it's not just all of a sudden just throwing an idea and you cannot measure it just because of this year. No. This is something that it's been growing and it's necessary to happen. I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, you have to understand what we see every day and the demand that we see every day. I get it. You're saying, a beautiful, park that we used to have. The park is beautiful. I think it's beautiful more than ever. I get it. There's a little bit more pavement to it, but what do you think this beautiful attraction that's coming? All these people are leaving Royal Oak or Berkeley or, these other destinations that they have them right there in their backyard. They're coming over here to us. So we have to give them something, give them an opportunity to park and come enjoy themselves. I understand, you cannot measure this just for this year, a COVID year. No, this has been building up at least the past 5 years, which is, we've been thriving more than ever. So I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, it's look at the other way a little bit deeper. Appreciate it.
Chairman Hughes, could I make a point from a legal perspective?
Yes,
I think, and this maybe will help with the discussion. And this has no comment on the merits of demolishing, not demolishing, parking or not parking. I do have a concern with the procedural path this has taken. This has come up in new business. The actual voting on demolition was not part of the agenda. I think if you look at the recommendation that Mr. Seisland proposed was that the TIFA would direct him to investigate the cost of parking.
Thank
And so I
you.
think from a procedural standpoint, to make it cleaner, to give the public a little more of a heads up, I don't think it's appropriate to have a vote on the actual demolition. I think if that's something that the TIFA board would like to vote on, it should be placed on the next agenda and not made as a motion during new business. And so from the city attorney perspective, I don't think it's appropriate to have the motion as it sits on the table. I think the motion should be as proposed if there's going to be a motion to direct the TIFA director to investigate the cost. But seeing as the actual demolition was not on the agenda, I do not think it would be appropriate to have that vote tonight.
Very well. Then I would gladly revise the motion to direct the TIFA director to obtain competitive bids for demolition abatement and the development paving of the parcel, the vacant TIFA-owned parcel at 1166 Maryland. So I have a second.
I will second that motion. This is Board Member Cousineau.
Any discussion or further discussion?
I just want clarification for myself. We're talking about a structure that is in between an alley and an already existing parking lot.
Correct.
It's adjacent to the existing parking lot, yes.
And the alley, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's virtually an island.
This is Joe Tompkins. I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Joe.
Two items. One is it's a vacant structure. There's probably zero consideration of trying to rent it at this point. So it's now going to become a depreciated derelict building at some point because, and I don't know how long it's been vacant, but you know, empty buildings don't last long and they start to go downhill. That's number one. Number two, when we did solicit bids for a parking study, they came in at, I believe, $15,000 to $40,000. And correct me if I'm wrong. My analysis of the $15,000 survey was they weren't really going to do very much. So I would think that a realistic price is going to be more to $25,000 or $30,000 for a study. And if Board Member Mullins' estimate of $30,000 to $3,500 of parking space, we're looking at $100,000 to do the parking, another 25 or 50 to tear down the building and get it ready for doing it. It just seems like to spend $25,000 to $40,000 on a study when the consensus of the people in the area is that we do need additional parking. It seems like a foolish waste of money. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Any more comments? Okay, could we do a roll call vote then, please?
Board Member Cousineau,
Yes.
Board Member DePuse,
Yes.
Board Member Kakashi,
Yes.
Board Member Mullen,
No.
Board Member King Pipenbrock,
Yes.
Board Member Ralstrom. I think that was a yes. You were muted. Okay. Board Member Secord,
Yes.
Board Member Tompkins,
Yes.
Vice Chair Farrow,
Yes.
and Chairman Hughes.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
Very well. Let's move on to public comment for non-agenda items.
Leah, if you could start us off, please.
Thank you. Just to confirm for everyone on the call, we did not have any written comment for non-agenda items as well. So the first member in my queue is Brian. I'm just going to share the timer really quick. And then if you can please just restate your name and city of residency for the record, please go ahead.
Brian Bosberg, resident of Grosse Pointe Park, live on the 1100 block of Maryland. And I would just like to answer the question that board member Farrow asked. Does this exist between a parking lot in the alley? The only reason that this home exists between a parking lot and an alley is because the city tore down the house next to it and built a surface parking lot in between residential homes in our city. There is no screening whatsoever between the current parking lot and the homes next to it. We have headlights that shine into the front windows of people who live across the street on the west side of Maryland Avenue. And then we have stormwater. Since there is absolutely zero stormwater infrastructure in this parking lot, we have stormwater that just pours off of the parking lot into the street, causing a lot of water buildup in the street. This board made a motion, or I shouldn't even say the board did. The chair made a motion and then it was supported. Per Robert's Rules of Order, the chair is not allowed to make a motion. So this whole motion was completely out of order and not compliant with how we're supposed to operate. We also have this board that made a commitment to do parking studies, did not even a study, and then now wants to tear down homes.
Shut up.
Excuse me, it is not your turn to speak, former city attorney. We have this board that wants to tear down this home. It is owned by the TIFA district. The only reason that this home is vacant is because the city did not renew the lease on it. There was a family living in there last fall and into the winter. I don't know exactly when it became vacant. The reason that it is vacant is because the city allowed it to become vacant. This board made a commitment to do a professional parking study. You have chosen not to. You cannot express how disappointed I am in the board. This is not how cities operate. This creates all sorts of safety issues for the children that walk by. There's dozens and dozens of children that walk by this intersection every day to go to and from school. I can't express how deeply disappointed I am in this board. And I'm incredibly disappointed. Thank you.
As a point of quick clarification, since Mr. Bosberg has offered his interpretation of Robert's rules, it is not correct that a chairperson cannot make a motion. I've looked into that issue and that's not true.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. The next person in the queue is Mary. So again, I'm just going to ask you to restate your name and your city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Leah. I'm Mary Rouleau on Lake Point in the TIFA. So I'd like to float a concept of the TIFA adopting a designated walk zone sidewalks or something to that effect. The TIFA streets are the main routes to our businesses, and they are the walkway between street events like the recent Chili Fest. Yet many of the sidewalks are in need of repair and are dangerous. They should be a priority for the TIFA in the city. Currently, of course, there are many in various stages due to the DTE work, and some of them have actually been improved. But if you walk the streets like I do, you'll see that there are segments that remain. And such a program could be part of the upcoming budget, and I will advocate for it as part of that. But given all this discussion that was not, as the city attorney rightly pointed out, properly noticed, a couple of thoughts. One is the people who live adjacent to 1166 deserve the opportunity to have their voices heard. Unless this TIFA is ready to guarantee that there'll be no impact to their property values of knocking down that house and putting up another parking lot, especially if it's quite bluntly done the way we've done it in the past, which is just pave it over and that's the end of it. The other thing that kind of got me thinking though, was when you were talking about the trolley and that's been successful. So if that's the case, Why do the parking lots have to be right on the business district? I mean, surely there are other vacant lots in other parts of the park, other streets further away from the TIFA, where maybe the city could buy the land there and put in a parking lot and shuttle people to the business district. Anyhow, just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Seisland and Chairman Hughes, I have no further public comment at this time.
Thank you, Leah. If there's no other comment, I suggest we move to adjourn.
Let's do it.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you very much for attending, and I'll have a good night.
Good
Thank
meeting.
you.
Thank you.